Hello and welcome to tonight's first weekly Get in Tune series over here on the Incredicon page on Facebook and at Michael Grassia on my YouTube page. I got a great guest tonight. I can't wait to chat with him. So what I'm going to do now is start how I always start, play my intro, and then we'll meet our guest. All right, so let's bring on our guest. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good. And I just wanted to bring you on first before I announce your name because I'm bad with pronunciation of last names. Your first name is Rene. How do you say your last name?
Rene Pfitzner.
Pfitzner. Okay, Rene Pfitzner. You are an artist that I don't want to say I discovered, but I discovered your work for myself on Instagram. I've been following you for a while. I love your work, and I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. But for those who don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Rene. I'm a cartoonist, and I've been working in cartoons and animation for a long time. So back 20 years ago, I started working at Walt Disney Animation here in Australia. That was back when they had a little studio up in Sydney, and I joined that. I was there for about 6 or 7 years, on and off, and I was working in animation there. And since then, I've been working on my own comics. I've been doing storyboards for TV, and just keeping on drawing. And I'm also a part-time church minister, so I'm also working at a local church here in Melbourne, Australia. And very much enjoying that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about a few things. I really want to focus on your comics. You have a Kickstarter I want to talk about, but we'll get to that. Let's just start a little bit about your background and what inspired you to become an artist. Like, what was it that you were looking at that said, hey, I want to do, whether it's comics, animation, what was that?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Well, ever since I was a kid, I was just drawn to, visual stuff. I loved picture books and cartoons and comic books and everything like that. And I was drawing as a little kid. So probably one of my earliest influences was the Peanuts comics, Charles Schulz. Absolutely loved those comics. Got a bit older, got into Calvin and Hobbes when that was coming out. And I love the Asterix comics. I don't know if you have those in the States, but
we do. They're not as popular as they are overseas, but I have like 5 or 6 on my bookshelf over there. I'm a big fan of like that Franco-Belgian comic stuff. So anything that came out of that I read.
Yeah, I just remember as a kid just finding those in our local library, public library, and just like poring over every single panel. I was just absolutely captivated. So that's pretty much what got me on the path to becoming a cartoonist. And I was also inspired by some of the local political cartoonists I knew here in Australia. So I think I always pictured I would work for a newspaper doing either the comic strips or the political cartoons. Like those were the two kind of career options that I was aware of. And so that was pretty much how it all started. Those my early influences.
That's great. I think every one who's a cartoonist wanted to be like a syndicated newspaper strip artist, and that was my dream. It's almost impossible these days. Not that it wasn't hard years ago, but yeah.
Yeah, that dream pretty much died hard pretty early.
But with the internet, you can technically syndicate yourself anyway. So, just syndicate gets you probably more money than you would on your own. So let's talk a little bit about. Well, actually, before we go into Disney, did you go to school for art, like for animation? Or was that something you learned to?
Yeah, pretty much self-taught. I mean, my school teachers were really encouraging. Like we had a life drawing class every week at high school, and my art teacher was so encouraging, whether it was drawing or painting or whatever it was. They really pushed us to improve and keep getting better. And it was about that time I started doing little cartoons for the local kind of street newspaper. And this was back in the mid-90s. And that sort of grew into putting comics online in the early 2000s. And yeah, kind of grew from there. And it was only probably about 10 years ago or so that a friend of mine here in Australia started publishing collections of our short comics, like 2 or 3 page comics, and getting them printed, taking them to conventions and selling them. And that's when I started to think, oh yeah, like making comics, this could actually be a thing as well.
That's awesome. And when you got into animation and you ended up going to Disney, you worked there for what, the whole time, basically the whole time the Australia, I guess, office was set up over there, the studio?
No, because that actually been there for a long time. It was, first of all, it was Hanna-Barbera, set up in the 80s.
Okay.
And then sometime in the early 90s, Disney took it over. And so it had been going for probably about 6 years before I started. They'd done some of the DuckTales and some of those Winnie the Pooh cartoons.
Yeah.
And then I think their first big one was Lion King 2. And then they worked on the Goofy movie. And then about the time I came on, they were doing like Little Mermaid 2 and all of those sequels that came out around that time.
I'm looking at your IMDb, and I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but I know IMDb isn't always correct.
There are a couple of credits there that I didn't do, but
well, that's what I was saying. Right. You were saying when they probably started, like, it says, according to this, you worked as an in-between artist on Aladdin King of Thieves in '96.
That was before my time. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. And I know, and you were saying The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, was '98. That wasn't you? Okay.
That was a year before I started. So
you're on there as additional in-between artists. Same thing on an extremely goofy movie and The Little Mermaid 2.
I was on those. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when I started. Yeah.
According to this, you did work on, because I'm a big Disney geek. I love Disney. You mentioned Hanna-Barbera earlier. I'm a huge Hanna-Barbera fan. I actually have shelves devoted to just Hanna-Barbera, collectible stuff that I have above me.
Well, in your intro, you've got your Yogi Bear and your Boo Boo drawings.
Yeah, kind of. It was influence. That was from a video I was talking about character design for like Flash animation at the time.
Cool.
So I was talking about how Hanna-Barbera created the breaks and stuff. So that's where that came from.
Perfect.
But yeah, so what was I going to say? You did work on a movie I thoroughly enjoyed back in the what was it, 2000? It says came out in 2004. Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, the Three Musketeers.
Absolutely, that was probably a highlight, I'd say.
And that's what I wanted to. Go ahead. I was
on the Peg Leg Pete team.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And I wanted to ask, what is it like working for a company like Disney, where you're getting to work on such classic characters and bringing updated, or not even updated in some of the things, but trying to get the feel like with the Peter Pan 2 Return to Neverland, you're trying to capture that classic era. Just what is it, like 20 years in the future? What is something like that working on these things?
For sure. Well, I guess with any animation job, you're really having to, go back to the source material, whether that's the original film made 50 years earlier, or if it's the cartoonist who designed the characters. You're really looking at their style and you're wanting to capture that. So that's part of the skill in being an animator, is trying to put aside your style as much as possible and just become totally engaged in this new style. So in that respect, it's just like any other job. But I guess some of the particularities of going back to those, 50s and, some of those early cartoons was, getting the feel of that really squashing, stretchy, that feeling in the cartoony characters, and then in the straight character, with the human features and everything, trying to underplay that more than you normally would. So it's almost like two different styles in the same show.
Yeah. All right. Just continuing on animation, you said you are a part-time minister was the word you used? I don't want to.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to use the wrong term.
You can pastor, preacher.
Okay. I want to make sure I'm saying the right terminology. I don't want to disrespect what you do. So you do some. I was looking at your blog, and it's called what is it? otnpictures.blogspot.com. That's you? I'm on the right one?
OTN. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. How'd you find
that? And it's called Sunday School. I'm going to just add it to the, where is it here? Share the screen 2, allow. So we're looking here. We can go into more detail. We're not going to, I don't want to, show and a video unless you want us to, but you obviously chose Bible stories to tell because of your beliefs. This is, I got to say, I watched a couple of the shorts and stuff that you have, and I really enjoyed them. And do you do this? Are these made specifically out of your passion for them, or are they made to share with the communities, or is it a hired gig that you do for something?
So it's a combination of all of those. So I originally started back about 15 years ago, mucking around in Flash and entering short film festivals. So one of those was a Christian short film festival, and the theme was parables. And so I made a short cartoon of the persistent widow. That was my very first Flash cartoon. So I did all the voices. I recorded it all. I produced most of the sound effects just with my little MP3 player, and put it all. Tried to figure out how Flash worked and put it all together. So I did a couple of those over the years, and eventually a company called Max7 got in touch with me, max7.org, and they said, "Oh, we want you to do some cartoons about Abraham." And so I said, "Yes, please." And they gave me the voiceover and everything, so that was easy. I didn't have to, record that myself or anything. And this guy's voice was much better than mine, so immediately the production values increased. And from there, just every couple of years, they got back in touch and said, "Hey, we want another cartoon," and they put it up on their site, and they make it free for anyone to download. And they also have separate files for the audio and video, so that people can get in there and dub their own language or their own version of the Bible, or because they do it in ESV, so you might want it in an American accent, in the KGV or whatever you want to do. And so it's been this really open source thing. So I've just been putting them up on my YouTube as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually on your YouTube page. We'll talk about that too, because I really like some of the videos that you posted. I also love your style. Are you still using like Adobe Animate, or are you moved on? Are you using like Harmony now with your animation?
Yeah, so here, this is still in Flash. So every cartoon that I've put up is still, I'm using my old CS6 version of Flash.
Okay.
I think that was the last version before they put it on subscription.
Yeah.
And so I'm still loving that. It just feels so intuitive to me, and I can do everything that I want to do. And it's not, I'm not thinking, sometimes I think, I wish Flash could do this. But just over the last couple of weeks, I've done a test for an animation studio, and I finally cracked Toon Boom Harmony, and it's a beast of a program, but it might be a while before I start using it for my own personal stuff.
Yeah, I've been on and off learning it myself, and there are some things I can have a lot of fun and do real well in, and other stuff is just got to go back to the video tutorials. It can be rough. I do love your style, and I can see some of the, we're going to talk about your comics in a few, but I can see some of the style that you use in there in here. I think it's just, I think the other one might be a little more cartoony. Would you say that's true?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, this is my preferred style. I really love that cartoony feel, and yeah, as I said, I borrowed from Bill Watterson and Disney over the years, and probably more recently Penn Ward's Adventure Time and those kind of Cartoon Network style shows. Yeah.
These look great. No, go ahead.
The artist on the Gorillas and Tank Girl.
Okay, yeah.
The English. His name escapes me at the moment, but yeah, he was a big influence as well.
That's great. I love these. I mean, even just your lines are just, like, to me, kind of just perfect. Shows a lot of movement even in the stillness of the poses. I love that. Like, I get the feel of the characters just looking at them. Wow. Yeah, cool. Very nice stuff. Very nice. So let's talk a little bit about your comics. We'll go back to the YouTube. I mean, go back to the other screen in a few. So I've read online. I can't say the entire thing, but I've read most of what you have up that I can see of Sneaky Goblins, and also the one you have the Kickstarter going for Mythic Creature Trainer. Both fantastic. I love the style. It's not it's obviously like all age friendly. There's nothing in there that I see that would be, oh no, I can't give this to a little kid who's like 10 years old wanting to get into comics, or someone older than that who likes the family friendly type of stuff. So I love that, first of all, because that's the type of stuff I do, and that's what I kind of leads towards looking for. And you also name, I don't know if you named your company, but you have a website called Toll Craft, combining Tolkien, your love of Tolkien, and your love of Warcraft.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, Tolkien, his work is like the definition of what fantasy is. Were you a big Tolkien fan as a kid, or was that something that you got into as an adult?
Oh, look, I probably came to Tolkien. Well, of course, I read The Hobbit when I was a kid. That was a huge thing, and I didn't get to read Lord of the Rings until the year before the first Peter Jackson movie came out.
Okay.
So I'd held it off that whole time, and finally got to read them, and I loved them. They were brilliant, and those movies just blew my mind. You probably remember when they came out. It was just a revelation, and I think everyone became a fantasy fan.
Yes.
In 2000 or 2001 when those came out. Yeah, it was amazing.
I've always loved fantasy, and I've always geared towards fantasy and sci-fi, but when those Lord of the Rings movies came out, it pushed Star Wars out of my favorite trilogy. It was one of those things. I still can watch the end of Return of the King, and when Aragorn says, what's the line? He says something like, no one bows, you bow to no one. I tear up at that still. I've watched it countless times, and I still tear up at that scene. And I know a lot of adult men who do. So it's, but
right here.
Yeah. But as someone, I want to ask you this too, because I love talking to Tolkien people. And I'll tell you this: I didn't read The Hobbit till an adult. I had a reading issue as a kid, so I didn't get to read it until I was an adult. And I had, and Lord of the Rings was a little too difficult. But I think that's one of the reasons why I love the movie. I'd like to get back and try to read it now, but at the time it was a little too difficult with my issues. And I know someone, this is why I'm asking a question. How did you feel the films connected with the book?
Look, I'm not a purist at all.
Okay.
Like I can kind of, I can love something in one format and see it done differently in another, and I'm not bothered. I'm not a raving fanboy, where that's concerned.
That's good.
So I thought it was interesting that the choices that they made, and especially looking at the Ents and the way the Ents were portrayed. I thought, just the way they brought them alive, and you could kind of see them going so wrong. They did it a different way, and it was just brilliant. And just the scale of things, the sweeping landscapes, the New Zealand, mountain ranges, and the CGI was groundbreaking as well. The Gollum and all of that. It's been well covered. But I did notice they dropped out some of the little storylines and bits, and I was fine with that. I kind of thought, well, it wasn't essential. Yeah, I was fine with it.
Yeah. And I just asked because I have a friend whose name was in the credits of like people contribute whatever that thing was at the end. I don't remember. It's part of like a fan club, and she by the end of all three movies, she hated the films. She was like, it was just bad, and so she's upset that that her name's on the film. That's why I was asking.
No.
But and just quick, quickly, because Warcraft, you were highly influenced by Warcraft as well. I've never played, but I'm a fan of. I got some of those little mini PVC things that were like blind box stuff up there because I love just the look of fantasy. What was it about Warcraft that was like?
I've got my wife crocheted a little Murloc. So
that's awesome.
That's the only Warcraft merch that I've got.
Were you? Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't get into it early, so I kind of observed people playing the RTS version, and I saw it when the original World of Warcraft came out, and how people were obsessed with it. I think I went around to a friend's place, and her flatmate was just sitting on his laptop playing World of Warcraft and would not acknowledge anyone else in the room. So I got a kind of a taste for that kind of addictive qualities of it. But I didn't get onto it until probably about 2010, and I just really wanted to know what all the fuss was about. What the gameplay was like. I hadn't played any MMOs up to that point, and I really wasn't much of a RPG fan. I hadn't played a lot of. I played Diablo back when that came out in the 90s, but I hadn't played a lot of RPG games. I wasn't a big Zelda fan. I didn't have a console. So it was just diving into that world and seeing all the different races, the elves, the orcs and the trolls and all that, and all their different cities that every city had a different architecture. They lived in different landscapes. You'd go from one region to another, and it was a totally different feel. The background music, the lighting, the color palette, and so all of that just really spoke to my imagination. Yeah, just loved it.
That's great. You weren't one of those people who became obsessed with it, right? Or
let's say a couple of years of my life, kind of a bit hazy because I probably last touched it about 9 months ago, but just for a couple of months just to check out the new expansion. Yeah,
that's cool because I've taught college, and I've had a student. I remember he was huge into it, and he told me I was not allowed to assign him homework because he had to stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning playing Warcraft. And I told him, no, you have to do the homework. And what would he's like, well, what if I don't? I go, you fail. It's simple as that. And but he was like, no, but I got to play war. Like people, I've had a few students like that, but he was the hardest diehard, obsessed person I've ever met with it. So when I hear people talk about Warcraft and their interest in Warcraft, I always got to wonder how obsessed it made you, because I understand that escapism, that diving into the world, especially if you love fantasy and you love that stuff. But moving over from Warcraft and Tolkien, I'm sure that's one of the things that helped you, inspire you to create right here, Sneaky Goblins.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Sneaky Goblins?
Yes. So this was an idea I had probably about 5 years ago. I think I started work on this, and I just had this picture in my mind of an orc, this big character, and a little character, a goblin, helping him out in a quest. Sorry, the orc helping out the goblin. So that was the power dynamic. The goblin was the one who was controlling the situation. So I had this kind of idea just written out briefly in my sketchbook. And I think a guy I know locally here asked, do you have an 8-page story I could put into my comics anthology? And I said, no, but I can make one. And so I came up with the first 8 or 9 pages of this and sent it to him, and basically it grew from there. I thought, I'm just going to keep making this and see how I go, and the rest is history.
Yeah, this and do you still do any new Sneaky Goblins, or is that done as a strip?
So it is updating currently. I wrote a 9-page story, which is going to be included in the comic that I'm kickstarting right now. And but it's not illustrated by me. It's illustrated by a guy over there in the States, Jake Calsby. So he made those pages, and it's just so amazing to see another artist take on my characters. It's really cool.
That's awesome. I love when I usually do the majority of my artwork. I don't usually hire out artists for my stuff, but I like when other people write my characters over me. I like to hear the voice from other people. But yeah, this was fun. I don't want to go and show every page because, number one, there's a lot. Number two, we can sit here and read this. I love the work. I also I got to be honest, because you're using WordPress, and you're using I think it's the Comic Press, right? Format. These days, and this is something I want to ask you about. These days here, at least from what I see from American cartoonists, they're not really going to that anymore. They find that people don't specifically go to websites. They end up going to things like Webtoon and stuff. Have you thought about putting your stuff up there if it's not on there already?
Yeah. So I put it up probably about 6 months ago. I started posting weekly, probably about 4 or 5 pages a week. So I did all the work of converting the panels into vertically streaming, how Webtoon readers like it. So mobile friendly kind of format. And that was a big effort. That was a lot of work to convert my pages, which I originally created with the intention of getting these printed eventually. And so then moving them to the Webtoon format. And I don't know, I've got a few readers over there, a few people checked it out and subscribed, but I don't know if it was really worth all the work. Yeah. I have had people say, are you going to convert Mythic Creature Trainer into Webtoon format? But I might hold off on that. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll take a look at Webtoon in a second. One of the things I want to go to next is your YouTube page here. All right. I gotta say, you could say I almost watched the full amount. I looked at, I wanted to watch it, but it's funny because you and I work exactly the same way on our process. I draw everything on 8.5 by 11 paper. I'll draw just images out sometimes that I'll bring in and scale and whatnot. And then I'll border out 10 inches on the paper. And I'll draw and I'll do what I can, and I scan and I put it together in Photoshop and stuff. I'm not going to play the video. I just want to go zoom in on so people can see. I've also was looking at some of your drawings in the beginning here, like this. And like I told you before we came on, I've done animation work myself. I can see a very like animation workflow in here. Like, did you draw these on separate paper, light box it to kind of clean it up? No?
No, these are drawn straight down. So from thumbnails. And so then I just take the thumbnails and just go bang straight down with my red pencil, and then work over with the gray pencil.
Okay, no, I'm just good because I do a lot of like tracing with mine and cleaning up my. I'm a very messy sketcher, so I'm lines are all over the place. So I gotta always do a little tracing on my stuff. But yeah, I saw this and I'm like, I just feel that animation background in there. I liked your working method here, how you lay out. I sometimes do that either with a printed out thing or I do it by hand. So I found it interesting. I don't know many people who work in that method. I did interview someone on Saturday. His name's Jamie Costley, who's done work for like I think it's called WDW magazine, and he has a Disney comic in there that he does, and he's done stuff for like Star Wars Insider and whatnot. But he works kind of the same way: draw on paper, bring it into the computer to color and stuff. And I think that's
the other way. They do their pencils in the computer and then print them out so they can ink on real paper, then bring them back into the computer for color.
I've played with that myself, but I just don't like it. I'd rather digitally ink and color than draw everything straight on the computer. But this is a fantastic method, and I think, and the reason why I'm also bringing it up is, like I told you, I do a lot of educational stuff for kids. I basically work with pre-K to college level people, even older sometimes, and a lot of people think you need to buy fancy supplies and lots of crazy stuff, but you're working on photocopy paper, it looks like, and with a pencil.
Yep.
And you create beautiful work. Just looking at this.
Okay.
So I just want people out there to know you don't have to buy that Bristol pad of 11 by 17 and border everything out to 10 by 15. There are other ways to work.
Now, I mean, that I used to work that way, and that was a massive pain. Like just transferring my drawings. I'd scribble on the back and then trace over them to get them on the board, and forget about it. Like just getting it into the computer is so much easier. But if you can get a Wacom tablet or next level up a Synths, which is what I use,
me too.
Absolutely worth it. Wacom tablets are so cheap these days.
Yeah. No, they're good. I have mine here next to me. I'm sometimes for a while when they did the update to what was it? Was it Mojave with the Mac? I lost my ability to work on my Cintiq, and it took them like 8 or 9 months to create a patch for that. So that drove me nuts. And you're telling me you're working on CS6, which I love too. But because of the work I do, I have to have the subscription service. But this is the comic I really wanted to chat about today. Mythic Creature Trainer. You have a Kickstarter going, which I don't know if I have the page up. I gotta look. I think I gotta open up the page. But tell us a little bit about how this comic came about, and why you put the Kickstarter together for it.
Yeah, sure. So this comic came about because I wanted to keep exploring the world of Sneaky Goblins. So this doesn't necessarily feature any of the characters that were in the original book, but I really wanted to explore more of the city, more of the, the lore of that universe. And so I had a whole lot of story ideas in my journal. So I think one week, for just as an exercise, every day I would write down 3 or 4 story ideas just in brief synopsis, and just say, that Pixar method, this was the case, then this happened, and because of that this happened, until finally, and they all lived happily ever after, or whatever. So I did that structure every day, and I had all these story ideas, and this was pretty much the one that jumped out at me. It was the idea of a guy who loses his job, but is framed for bringing down the defense system of his city, which in this case is the mythical creatures. They're the last line of defense that the city has, and he has to go and find a way to solve it. And so you've got this the huge stakes of a city invasion by an orc tribe, of course. The orcs have to be the bad guys.
Of course.
And so you got those big stakes, but you've also got the smaller stakes on a personal level. He has to get his job back, which he loves, and he's going to go to all kinds of lengths to accomplish that. So that's pretty much how the story started.
All right. You've already sold me, but like I said, I've read. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've gone through a bunch of pages here that you have up, and this always pops up to me. Hold on.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to change the settings.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And
last week.
I just love because I read when I first saw this, you had I think 5 pages available up or something, like a short amount. And I think because I subscribed to your email, I don't know if it came there or if you posted it on Instagram or something, but somewhere I saw the first 5 or 6 pages, and I loved it. And when I knew it was when I discovered that it had a web page, I went and started reading as much as I could.
Nice.
My schedule doesn't allow me to just sit and read all day, but I would love to on this. So we'll just go through a couple of pages here. I just love your work. And then we're going to go. So now you're trying to collect this in a book. It's not the whole story, though, that you have out on the comic. The comic's still continuing, correct?
That's right. Yep. So the comic itself will run to about 120, 130 pages. So
Okay.
I'm still creating those pages week by week, and so posting a new page every week. But the Kickstarter is for the first, I think, 32 pages plus that 9-page story that I told you about, which kind of explores the crossover between Sneaky Goblins and Mythic Creature Trainer. So the comic that I'm kickstarting will
Let's
be...
go to the Kickstarter.
So it's a 48-page comic, and so I wanted to get issue 1, so there'll be 4 issues all up, but I just wanted to get the first issue out and published. So that's what this Kickstarter's for.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, and your rewards, I like your rewards a lot. And I'll be honest, I don't know how people feel getting stuff shipped right now overseas to America with the whole coronavirus stuff going on. I have medical issues, so for me, I'm nervous about that. But I love that you also offer the digital bundle. And that's what I pledge to because of my nervousness. For those who aren't nervous, go to a higher pledge amount. I have my own issues in my head. So, but the digital the digital catch-up bundle is the PDF of Mythic Creature Trainer, which is the first 32 pages, the first 32 plus the 9-page story, 160-page graphic novel of Sneaky Goblins, and a 44-page comic of Sneaky Goblins at college. All right.
That's it.
I mean, that's how many pages? Over 200 pages of comics right there. That's almost, it's close to 300 or so, right? No, I'm sorry. No.
150, yeah.
Yeah, no. I saw a 1 next to the 44 pages before it. I saw 144 for a second. But I mean, that's fantastic. But you have some great stuff. Now, I don't know, the YouTube video that I was talking about, you were going through stuff. And that only goes to 1 subscriber. That's all your artwork. Which level is that, if you don't mind me asking? Is that the last one?
So that's the last level. Yeah, that's the Hail Mary. That's the big one, the big Kahuna.
That is so it's $500. I'm just saying $500 Australia, but for those people here in America, it says it's about $340. So it's not as much when you know, if you're an American looking at the price and being a little, you know, that's a lot of money. But anyway, please talk about that.
That's interesting that it comes up for you in Australian dollars. So you kind of have to convert it in your head when you're looking at the Kickstarter page.
Yeah, I'll just give the whole screen to it for a second so you can see what I see. Yeah. I'll zoom in on the page if I can.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, so it says AU 500.
Yeah, AU 500, but then it says about $340 right underneath it.
Oh, gotcha.
So like when I pledged to this one here, and right, so it said $20, which is about $14 American. You know, it would have been worth it for you to take my 20 though. For all that, I would have been happy with that. But whatever I can, you know, whatever I can give, you know, on the stuff like that where I can help out, I do. Anything I see, I love to promote independent comic artists. That's what I prefer to read. I know I'm wearing a Superman shirt right now, but if it was up to me, I'd be reading independent comics all day long.
Yeah, I love it.
So I think these are fantastic comics. And this right here, this short story that you were talking about, Jake, how do you say Calsbeek?
Calsbeek. Yeah.
Calsbeek. So this is some of his artwork interpreting your characters here.
That's it. Yeah. So last year he sent me some fan art of Sneaky Goblins, and so I put that in the book that I was publishing last year, Sneaky Goblins at College. I put the pin up in there, and later on in the year he said, "Hey, do you have any scripts that I could just draw? You know, because I love the characters. You know, they're fun and you know, all the rest of it." And I said I don't have a script, because he would just wanted to do it off his own bat. Like, I wasn't hiring him to do it or anything. And I said, I don't have a script, but I'll write you one. And it took me much longer than I hoped to get it to him, but I eventually sent him the script, and he was great. He kind of came back, because I'm so sloppy. If you watch that video, you get an idea of what my script looks like, and you know, there's spelling mistakes and half-baked ideas just pouring onto the page, and it's only later I kind of really sharpened them. But he came back to me and he said, "This doesn't make sense, and this, and what do you mean by that?" And we just hashed it all out like we're doing here, just on a Zoom call or whatever. Yeah. And he just made sure he really understood what I was trying to get across in every page, and the plot points and how it resolved. And so, you know, he's a total pro. He got to work on this, and every stage he sent me updates of what he was doing, and I had a couple of suggestions, but mostly I just let him go and do his thing. So when this came back, I was just so pumped. I'm like, I'm putting this in the book. This is brilliant.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic. You know, I gotta look up his stuff now, because I love his style too. I mean, I saw it. I just never had a chance when I was on your Kickstarter page. I just never looked it up. But I'm really digging his style too.
Yeah, it's really nice. He's got a comic at the moment called Super Rocket Space Punch. So go and check that out. He's just started updating that webcomic.
All right, that's cool. I'm gonna just share your social media right now. So if anyone's interested in finding you, oops, I didn't mean that. Sorry. If anyone's interested in finding you on Instagram, it's, can you say Fitzy Draws? Is that it?
Fitzy Draws, that's it.
Fitzy Draws. And on Twitter and YouTube, it's just your name at Rene Pfitzner. Right, I said that right? Awesome. Well done. And then to contribute to the Kickstarter, it's Mythic Creatures, mythiccreaturetrainer.com/KS. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to put that in the comments right now. Whoops. I'm going to take that. I'm going to put that in the comments right now, so that anyone can just, it's an actual clickable link and people can look at it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I think this, I think this is a very solid idea. You write very well. Um, There's a little error. I'll fix that later. You write very well. It's got a nice like humorous feel in places, which is I think what you were going for. Like I said, this is a great just family friendly. Anybody who's into fantasy, who loves like Dungeons and Dragons or loves the Tolkien worlds or things like that we were talking about earlier. These are great comics for.
Well, I didn't mention it before, but now that you mention it, Jeff Smith's Bone was another huge influence as well.
Oh, yeah.
Cartoony fantasy. You can't go past that.
Yeah, no, Bone might be one of my all-time favorite comics that I've ever read. Just like when you said Calvin and Hobbes, I have a copy of the last strip, a print of it, up hanging above by my table right now that I'm looking at. And I find it interesting when I talk with people. We all have very similar interests and like inspirations and things that shaped us as artists if we're around like the same age and stuff. So I just find it interesting that we all kind of can just talk about anything, and it's like, yes, I know that, and we could see it in everybody's work as we just draw together or whatever, Yeah,
and a lot of that's to do with just the amazing heritage of American culture and the way that that's come across the world. That we've almost got this, universal, body of work to draw from the past 3 decades. Is just It's been just so influential and powerful. It's been a real. It's great that it's come to Australia, and while we're a bit uncertain about being taken over, I think we're punching above our weight in terms of stuff that we're putting out here, but in terms of population, but really the States is just it's just like this incubator of creativity. It's just been fantastic.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask you, and I meant to ask you in the beginning, how much of American culture do you have out there? So you're saying 30 years of like basically geekdom has come over to you guys,
definitely.
Which is great. I think we take it for granted over here, because it's so much, and for us specifically, if you're not into the American kind of comics, you're not looking at Asterix like we were talking about. You're looking at manga. How is, just out of curiosity, how is the manga influence or craze over there? Do you have it like we have it?
Yeah, manga's definitely a big thing. I recently read the Attack on Titan comics and the Death Note and Tokyo Ghoul and all of those kind of comics for older kids, older people, obviously, not for kids.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid watching Dragon Ball Z. I think there were VHS tapes available, and I don't think they were on our free-to-air TV at the time, but I was getting my hands on those, and I was finding a lot of comics from Thailand. Weirdly, they had a very similar kind of manga feel to them, and I just really loved that style. So I think I was doing a lot of copying of that as well, and it all got mixed up into my style, and so there's a bit of Japanese influence, but it's mainly there's a lot of US culture in Australia. I mean, we've got Netflix, and pretty much 90% of it is American stuff.
I'm starting to notice that at least on our Netflix, I don't know how it is over there, we're starting to get stuff from other countries filling up the Netflix queue. I just recently watched it was like 6 episodes. It was called Ragnarok. I think it was like a Norwegian era area type of thing, because it's the looked like it was dubbed in English. It was obviously shot over in that area, and I'm like, okay, so, and then I start seeing stuff, and we're getting things like a lot more martial arts style, like Asian films and things I'm starting to see pop up on there. Same thing's happening with Amazon Prime that I noticed, So I didn't know. I don't know. Do you see that in your queues too? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Witcher. Is that an English production? I'm not. Really sure.
I don't know, but it's it was huge here in America, so I didn't know where it was shot, but I thought it was shot overseas at least. If not, not an American production. It was definitely an American production shot overseas. I have to. Did you watch The Witch?
Oh yeah, loved it. Yeah, absolutely. And Vikings. I don't know if you saw that.
Bits and pieces. I got to sit down and really focus on that.
Yeah, that's a good show as well. Although I think after about 4 seasons, I started to think, oh yeah, this is kind of getting a bit more of the same.
Yeah, that happens though.
They fight amongst each other. Yeah, someone comes out on top. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and of course, Game of Thrones. It's that was just an obsession for 7 years or so.
Yeah, I think I'm the only person who didn't like the show. I watched the first 2 seasons, I think. With my wife watched the entire series. I watched the first 2 seasons, and the world building for me wasn't there. And that's actually something I was going to talk to you about. It's a great segue into it. But yeah, I just didn't feel like my major problem was how they kind of worked magic, dragons, the beginning of Catholicism into and I'm just like, this just really doesn't make sense to me. I feel like I'm not going to read the books because of my issues with it, but my issues.
Is another genre that makes it in as well.
What?
The Walking Dead, that's another genre.
Yeah. Again, I gave up after like a couple of seasons on that. My wife eventually gave up on it too. The things just I think some shows run their course, and with Game of Thrones, that was my experience was poor world building visually on the show. I'm sure the book does it much better. Maybe we're going to end in a couple of minutes because we got another guest coming on. My business partner Mike Lopez is going to be interviewing someone else in a few moments. But I just want to ask you, and quickly, your world building experience. How long do you spend really developing the world that you live in? I mean, you're a fan of Tolkien. He built languages. He built all this stuff. How do you go long, short? Like, how do you build it?
This is the thing. I tend to go into things like head first. So I don't like to spend a lot of time developing beforehand. I like to write the story. So that's one thing I did do was I wrote the entire Sneaky Goblins story. And I did the same thing for Mythic Creature Trainer. Wrote the whole thing out beforehand, before I started drawing any pages. So that's one thing I took care of. But in terms of world building, I mean, I made a map of the country, Winfirth, I called it, for my last Kickstarter, and that was part of one of the rewards was you could get a map, and that only came together because I'd already talked about all of these places. I didn't come up with the map first and then write the stories. So the world building is very much something that happens as a matter of necessity. It's not something that I totally construct from scratch and then build the story out of it. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's a great way to work. I know a lot of people get too much into the world building that they don't end up ever drawing their comic or writing their story. So I was just curious your take on it. But one more time before we go, I put up your social media stuff. Definitely check out the Mythic Creature Trainer Kickstarter. Add to it if you can. Please do. He's got fantastic. Rene here's got some fantastic rewards. Go read his comics online. You got what is it? MythicCreatureTrainer.com and Tollcraft.com for Sneaky Goblins. I want to thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit. Like I said, I got to wrap it up because the next thing's starting. I'd love to one day talk more. If you have another Kickstarter, definitely come on. I'd love to, continue following you and promoting what you're
what you're doing, because it just really is great and inspiring to people who want to create and don't. I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great talking to you. You ask excellent questions, and you've obviously done your work, so I really appreciate that. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm gonna take off. You can hang back just for a moment.
No worries.
Thank you. So, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. I really do hope you guys go check out Rene's Kickstarter. He's got fantastic stuff that you guys should be looking at. If you are watching on Incredicon HV on Facebook, stay tuned. Mike Lopez will be doing an interview. If you are not on Facebook at all and you're just watching me on YouTube, go check out the rest of my friends. The Draw, Drink, and Social Hour. Fantastic stuff. I was on it. You can go back and watch their old videos with me. Great group of guys. But if you're on Facebook, stay tuned. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. I'll probably see you on later on the week, but I'll see you next week with a little Get in Tune. All right. Good night, everybody.